What's up, Connor? I'm your host, Justin. Welcome to Justin. Today's our 9/11 special. Today we'll be interviewing Mr. Blankenship, and stay tuned for our 9/11 memorial. Welcome back, everyone. Today we'll be kicking off Justin, our interview portion version. First, I'd like to dig and welcome my guest, Mr. Blankenship.
Hi.
Hi. Well, thank you for joining for today's episode of Justin. I know today's like a serious topic we're talking about, so can I ask you some questions about today's topic?
Sure.
Okay, so where were you at when 9/11, like the attacks were happening?
So I worked at a bank, First American Bank, and I was a college student, so I had a shift at work, and so I was just doing a normal day of work, and then everybody came out and it was like, you know, we're being attacked, and we had a TV in the break room, and so we turned it on because really nobody believed it, and then we turned on the news and they were reporting of the attacks that hit the Twin Towers.
And what kind of emotions were you just going through during this time of the attacks?
I think the first emotion was disbelief. You know, we didn't think that something like that would ever happen on American soil. And so just feelings of disbelief, surreal, and then, you know, fear. Fear kind of took over a little bit as well.
And I guess, what was your response after like the attack, like after everything, I guess, kind of calmed down?
I think, you know, you wait to hear like if there's going to be more, because we saw those too, and then you're wondering like what's next. My husband at the time lived in Maryland, and so I was trying to get through to him to talk to them, and you couldn't get through, and then they asked us to keep the phone lines clear. But yeah, that was my first thought, was to try to get in touch with him and see if, you know, what was happening, if they knew more, because he lived 3 hours from New York, and then we get the report about the Pennsylvania flight as well. So it was just a really scary time, and this feeling of uneasiness as well.
And I mean, what changed after, like, when you started going to like airports? Like, what was like the biggest change? Of course, it was security, but like, do you feel more safe there now because all the security we have now, all the security changes at the airports? Do you feel like it's more better now?
I mean, it was significant change. So that was September. I had a flight out. I was flying to Maryland in November, Thanksgiving, and I almost canceled my flight because I was like, we were still afraid at that time. It was still, I would say, you know, people were still uneasy, but I went ahead with it, and at the airport there was lots and lots of security, military security, and, you know, big guns everywhere, and then lots and lots of checkpoints. I would say more checkpoints than we have today. And the wait time was like extreme. And that was like the first time my parents dropped me off instead of like walking me to the gate. Mm-hmm. And so that was significant change. And then changes today, I would say we've grown accustomed to the changes, right? Because we have acclimated to these changes. But back then, them throwing away a bottle of perfume was like devastating, right? But today, we know like to only pack certain things. But back then, everything was so new, and so adjusting to that was difficult, I would say, especially for those people that flew often. Yeah. But I say today, I think we have grown accustomed to the changes. We don't mind the security measures because we feel like it's part of keeping us safe.
Okay. And I guess our last question is, How did your family members, or like how long it took for all your family members and friends to be like, okay, it's safe now to, I guess, fly a plane now after like a while?
Well, I think a lot of people wanted to have this feeling like we're not going to let them take away our life, right? We're not going to let them win, because I feel like if we continue to just be afraid all the time, then they won. And I think a lot of people that I talked with had that kind of sentiment, like we're not going to stop living our life. Like I did get to go to the Pentagon a month after 9/11 and witness, you know, the after effects of that and the damage to the Pentagon building. And I think it did take quite some time for people to feel normal again. But I think those people that lived through that, that's in the back of their mind always. And we know the significance of us, you know, uniting during that time. America was extremely united. And I feel like by the time July 4th hit, we were just really united and ready to celebrate our country. And you know, people were supporting the military like never before. So I feel like once that happened, America became united and kind of separate, you know, put aside their differences.
Okay, I think that's all the questions I have to ask. We will now show you a timeline to show you what happened during the 9/11 event.
And my mom was dropping us off, and we heard on the radio, it was a talk show, they said, a plane's hit the tower. And we're like, what? What's going on? And it was literally maybe 5 seconds before I had to get out of the car.
I didn't know what was going on at first, and then when they told me that the towers had been hit, or actually the first plane had hit the towers, I got to witness the second plane hit the towers. It was very emotional.
My aunt was actually working at the Pentagon the day that it hit, and she was actually pregnant with my cousin.
Is that my mom's in a full-blown panic, tries to manage the situation the best that he could, but my sister and I are just sitting next to each other on the couch watching this, you know, basically unfold live on television. And then the first tower fell, and I remember my mom like just completely losing it.
And I remember our principal coming over the speaker and telling us about what had happened, and we had TVs in the classroom where we could go and watch it, and we turned it on and we saw it, and I think my heart stopped for a few minutes.
Watching the TV, watching the replays, watching everything happen. They were showing all the other planes that were hitting, the one that hit the Pentagon, the one that fell in Pennsylvania, and we were just trying to figure out what is going on, what's happening. First, thought it was an accident, maybe something's going on with the air traffic control, what's going on? We had no idea. We just know all these planes were crashing.
And she just kept calling. Second tower falls. And then that's when she just like, it almost like something broke inside of her. You know, it was just a moment of like unbelief, a moment of panic, a moment of, you know, just terrified, just all mixed into this just terrible ball of emotion that she just had no way of handling. I don't know if I would have been able to handle it if I was an adult with kids at the time too.
By the way, was there any like a positive during this situation that came out of this?
There was. So we were all emotional, obviously, the day of. I mean, Mr. Brody went into the details of that, but it was a horrible day, absolutely horrible day. All of our emotions, all of our fears, everything came out. But the next day, when we realized it was over, or at least that part of it was over, we all came together. So, you know, every day we experience, you know, in the hallway, just little things here and there that are negatives. There was nothing negative the next day. Everything was positive. Everyone showed love to each other. No one was mean. No one was rude. No one, you know, there was none of that. It's just everyone was there to uplift each other. And it was one of the best days that I have ever experienced, if not the best day. It's just sad that it had to follow such a tragic day.
Yeah.
Wanted to go back and serve my country again, because it's something to defend your country for so long and then see it being under attack.
And when I went home that evening, since the air lines and everything had been shut down, I just remember how quiet it was and how still it was. And there was just a feeling of nationality that I haven't seen in a long time. So it was just a sad, sad day. And the pictures were just horrific to watch.
It wasn't until I got home that my mom started telling me about my aunts and uncles that worked in New York City. And one of my uncles worked at the building across the street, and we were worried about him. And then he was able to make contact with my mom, and he told her his train had broken down. His train was delayed. His train did not make it in. I think it was delayed for an hour and a half, a very long time. And had his train not been delayed, he would have been at work when the planes hit. And so he would have been affected, and he would have been there. And it just makes me think how many of those people on that train could have been in the tower or nearby the towers when they fell, because people around it still suffered from all the debris, everything falling. So it just made me realize how lucky those people were.
We get home, and on the way home, my mom's not really telling me anything. I'm asking questions. What's going on? Everyone's leaving school, right? It was a little bit of a panic, but we just didn't really have any information. We get home. My mom says, there's been an accident in New York. We can't get a hold of any of the family that we have. So I was born in New York. My mom was from New York. She was born in New York too. And my New York side of the family, at the time was 15, 16, 17 people deep. We were a big family. She couldn't reach anybody. The landlines were clogged with so much traffic. We couldn't reach anybody. And then that's when my mom really started to panic, because it went from an assumed accident to this is now deliberate. This is planned. This is some sort of an attack the information that was flying around back then was not as quick as it is today. It also it caused a lot of panic, because not only was the Twin Towers struck, but also, like Ms. Schulen said, it was the Pentagon. That's the Department of Defense. This is a coordinated effort, and there's malicious intent behind it too.
And that's what I remember about 9/11.
Now let's take a look at what's happening around CHS. Well, it's really hitting, yeah. This is a serious topic to really talk about. Well, I think that's mostly it. I want to thank you guys for coming to the show to talk about you guys' experience during the time. So, yeah. Well, that's it. That's all I have for Justin. I want to thank our guests for coming here and telling their story. And yeah, I'm sorry, it's really hitting. Make sure you stay tuned for other time of Justin, next episode next week. And remember, CHS, there's no price to be nice. So make sure to spread some kindness once or twice.